afternoon, my friends. This is Paul, and I hope you really appreciate the change of scenery because it has been a heck of a time trying to get the house in a state where I can record without bothering anyone. My niece has been staying at my house for the past 3 days, so that's been a handful. Definitely no way I could film with her making a racket. And then she finally went home today, but now my sister and her boyfriend are here, so I just said to heck with it. I'm going outside, but let me know if you guys love this background. Maybe I'll just go outside in the future if you really like the sounds of the crickets and the cars and all that. In today's episode of ISTJ Info Dumping, I wanted to highlight a particular part of our blind spot function, extroverted feeling, that I think not a whole lot of people talk about. Because when it comes to weaker functions, most people like to zero in on the effects that it has on the people around them, as opposed to the effect that it has on the individual. So, in other words, it's easier to point the blame and say, oh, you've got so many things wrong with you, but it's hard to think about how the individual experiences it. So it's easy to point to, say, an INTJ and say, oh my gosh, you're so oblivious because extroverted sensing is your bottom function, but how does the INTJ feel about that? I'm sure the INTJ would love to experience the wonderful world of sensory integration and to be able to notice things. And I'm sure it causes a heck of a lot of inconveniences. So, what does it have to do with extroverted feeling for ISTJs, you might be saying? Well, extroverted feeling in the seventh function is also called blind spot or polar, meaning point of least resistance, extroverted feeling. Most people, when they talk about this, they say, oh, that means that ISTJs and INTJs are really oblivious to how other people are feeling. And it's really hard for them to know how to be socially acceptable and not make a whole bunch of faux pas because they're not noticing all the expectations and the emotions of what's going on around them. And it makes them not very empathetic. And yeah, I've talked about that myself on this channel, and I'm certainly not going to claim that any of that is inaccurate. But I think as someone who actually has that function, I can highlight a personal problem that this has on me that I don't think the people that cover ISTJs from a third person perspective can truly come to terms with because they don't live with it. And that's that the dark side of having seventh function extroverted feeling is that we also have a hard time detecting positive emotions. To us, we see everything as a matter of duty, obligation, and moral responsibilities. There's not really a huge sense of we are doing this simply for the sake of pleasing others. Even if we want to make people happy, usually our go-to response is, it was nothing. It was just part of my duty, or like any good Catholic would do that. There's usually some kind of excuse made to justify the goodness as opposed to just saying, yeah, it was my pleasure to serve you, and leave it strictly at that. And that's why it's really hard for us to accept affirmations, because we often don't really understand the affirmations to begin with. I know for me, one of the things that my friends criticize me the most for is that I don't know how to take a compliment and that I'm too hard on myself. They say that I have so many great achievements, but yet most of those achievements I don't really give myself enough credit for. Even the little victories in life, I often have to have other people point them out to me before I realize that that is something to be excited about. Now, I don't mean to come across like I'm bragging or that people need to get me to brag more. But I have a really hard time knowing what kind of impact I have on others unless they're direct about it. And I think the lack of extroverted feeling makes that even more apparent. Because even though it's hard for me to be sympathetic when people are in pain or having negative experiences, the same logic applies when people are having positive experiences around me. If people are impressed by something I'm saying or something that I've done, I'm not going to pick up on that. I am just going to think, duty calls, whatever. And if people aren't direct and not confrontational in a bad way, but don't come up to me specifically and say, wow, Paul, this amazed me. You're really making a positive impact on my life. 9 out of 10 times, I'm not going to recognize it because I've been conditioned to believe that most people in this world probably use extroverted feeling. I'm pretty sure that's fake because I also think most of the people in the world are introverts and most of the people in the world are intuitive from personal experience. And most of my friends who are neither will tell you that that's not true. So, in my experience, most people seem to use extroverted feeling, which means that they often will prioritize group harmony and making sure that everyone is comfortable over the objective reality of what is actually going on. Instead of trying to present things as they are, they try to present things in a way that will hurt people's feelings the least. Even the people with extroverted feeling all the way down have a certain degree of empathy that the introverted feeling types lack. And it's usually like straightforward empathy. There's not usually a reason for it. Whereas with us, we might like have to learn how to be empathetic and sympathetic. Forgive the lawnmower behind me. As a result of some other value system that we have, extroverted feelers are often, I probably don't need to shout because of the microphone, are often empathetic just because it's an innate skill of theirs. So, what does that have to do with what I'm saying? Well, it means that a lot of people end up wanting to be polite and not hurt people's feelings over simply telling it like it is. If I don't know, say they don't like my hair, they would rather say that my hair is good than actually tell the truth about what they're really feeling. In the same way, I often make the assumption that people don't tell me how they really feel because they're just trying to be polite. And when people do compliment me, I automatically assume it's one of those, oh, they're just trying to make me feel better. That's not what they actually feel. So that's the main reason why I can't take a compliment, is because I'm always questioning the authenticity of the comment. Is it really what the person genuinely feels, or is it in some vain attempt to make me feel better by telling a lie? I remember getting into a conversation with that on that topic with one of my INFJ friends, and she was saying that if someone had asked her what they thought of their haircut, she would have responded, "It looks good," even if she didn't think it looks good, because she didn't want to hurt the person's feelings. And I had a hard time accepting that, because I was like, why wouldn't you just be honest but phrase it in a diplomatic way so that you still don't hurt the person's feelings, but you're not outright telling a lie? And she's like, no, I think a white lie in this instance is totally justifiable. And it made me feel so uncomfortable. I think not having extroverted feeling, it just doesn't come naturally to want to fabricate the truth for the sake of people's feelings. I think you can still tell the truth and spare people's feelings if you know how to explain things correctly. Easier said than done with some people who are drama queens, but that's their problem, not ours. How are we supposed to fix this dilemma? If ISTJs are always being hard on themselves and not realizing when they accomplish something that's worthy of being praised for, how are you supposed to go about it and affirm the ISTJ and make them realize, no, we're not just being polite for the sake of making you feel better. We genuinely want to say this because this is what we feel. We genuinely do think you have made a difference to us. Honestly, the way I just worded it is perfect because ISTJs are dense. They are ridiculously dense. They do not know how to tell what a person is feeling. So unless if you are straight to the point and really direct about it, they're probably not going to pick up on it, and they're probably going to brush it off. Especially don't use a lot of wordy and vague platitudes to try to make your point. If you're saying stuff like, oh my gosh, you're the sunshine of my life, and you have illuminated a ray of truth into my brain, they're going to be like, say what? Are you on drugs or something? So you have to phrase it in a way that is very, very concrete and non-abstract if they are truly going to understand you. I gave a couple of examples of this in my previous info dumping video, where I mentioned that ISTJs like to have tangible explanations of how they've made a difference. Like that girl at the conference who told me that her friend who was suicidal decided not to be suicidal because she relayed my words to her friend. So in other words, my words ended up saving a girl's life. And so that girl's mere existence on this earth is a tangible result of my words, through God, of course. Don't want to take away credit from him. People need to realize that they need to do those kinds of examples for common affirmations as well. Words alone often don't mean a darn to ISTJs, especially if people are prone to lying and not actually telling the truth. So if you really want an ISTJ to feel affirmed, you have to really let them know what it is that they did in tangible words. A couple of good examples I can give that are a little less extreme than the example of a girl's life. One of the customers came into the gym that I work at, because I'm a janitor, for those of you that are newbies. And a lot of times I do take my work for granted because my boss very rarely compliments me on my work. So a lot of times I think, oh, I probably did a terrible job because she didn't say anything. But then there will be customers who say, you know what, Paul, I really like the work that you do. Now, at first when I hear that, it's a little bit vague because I'm like, how are you supposed to see what work I'm doing? Like, disinfectant is often getting rid of invisible germs, and so it's kind of hard to tell the direct results. So usually when I have like a bit of hesitation in my voice, then the customer will rephrase it as, whenever I come in here, the place is consistently clean, and I notice that as you're working, you're very slow and methodical so that you cover every inch of the machine. That was a little bit easier to take because I could say, okay, well, they're pointing out the specific work ethic that I have that they really approve of, because then that gets rid of germs. Actually, one customer flat out just said that. He said, Paul, if it weren't for you, I imagine more of us would go to the hospital because all these customers would be getting germs all over the machines. So by you putting the disinfectant on the machines, it's saving us a lot of hospital trips because now we're not getting sick from all the germs. That was the kind of affirmation that I took really well, because I was like, oh, well, if I can save people's lives and prolong their trips to the hospital and allow them to be on this earth longer so they can serve the Lord more, then heck yeah, that's an affirmation I want to hear. Or if a person says, Paul, I was doubting the Catholic faith before, but after hearing you talk, it made me want to recommit my life to Christ, that is an affirmation. But if it's something like, oh my gosh, Paul, you were so sweet and your faith was so inspiring. No, that's not going to do it. It makes me feel good that my presence can have a positive impact on people. But I like to know what was the positive impact. Finally, that lawnmower stopped. I like to know what is the positive impact on people, not just the fact that it exists. I like to know the result. So as a result, oh boy, that was that was a terrible segue, saying result twice in a row. Let's see if I can resentence that. Because ISTJs are so hard on themselves, I think those of you who aren't ISTJs are probably going to have to do a lot of the heavy lifting to make them be able to realize that their contributions are more meaningful than they themselves realize, because they hold themselves to the same standards that they hold others. And just as they're not necessarily expecting to have to affirm everyone, they don't expect to be affirmed. But yet they're also secretly sabotaging themselves in the process because they, deep down inside, whether they want to admit it or not, I think every ISTJ wants to be affirmed because they have introverted feeling. They want their values to be validated. They want to know that their emotions aren't stupid and that they actually have a meaningful contribution to society. So if people aren't continuously telling them that stuff, they're not going to pick up on it. They're not intuitives. They're not able to read these abstract vibes that people are getting off. With introverted intuition all the way down here, if something isn't point blank said exactly as it is, they're going to be totally thrown off by it. So what are some positive examples of feedback that you can give for even just simple things, like liking this channel, for example? Some of the comments that I really despise the most on this channel are simple comments saying something like based or this video was good. On one hand, it's nice that I get more positive than negative reception, but it doesn't mean anything to me because I don't know what I did that was good. It could be that the video quality was atrocious and my microphone was terrible. And so if a person just says the video is good, there could be a whole number of things going on. There have also been people who look at my videos, especially that 3DS unboxing video, who say, this is a 10 out of 10 masterpiece. And that's also confusing because it's like, what about it is a 10 out of 10? Is it the camera angle? Is it the recording? What is it that you guys like about the video? Especially that video was made so lazily. Like, I just popped open a camera and decided I'm just going to roll with it. Whereas all these later videos that I've put out, I've actually like tried really hard to get the sound mixing just right. And I've tried really hard to make sure to edit out all of my clearings of the throat and the coughs and the awkward pauses to really make it flow better. But yet those videos don't get any compliments. So as a result, I'm constantly questioning myself like, okay, if these super lazy 6-year-old videos are getting so much praise, but these videos that I poured time and effort into aren't, to give you a better example, I feel like I am the living equivalent of Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, a game that was so lazily put together that it's so glitchy and it looks like an amateur's first indie game, and yet it's made by a AAA billionaire corporation that they figure, well, Pokemon sells, so we'll just put as little effort into it as possible, and that will make us a fortune anyway, because Pokemon is a big IP and people are just going to buy the game because why the heck not? It's Pokemon, we can do no wrong. That's how I feel when people compliment my low effort videos without being detailed about why they like it, and don't comment on the videos I put a lot of effort into. Because to me, it tells me that they're more concerned about making sure I feel good than actually giving me constructive feedback on the actual work that I do. That is why I ask for comments on these videos over asking for likes and subscriptions, because likes, subscriptions, they're okay, but they're vague. They could mean a whole number of things. Maybe you liked the message of the video, but even though you didn't like the audio quality, you still liked what I had to say, but that doesn't give me any constructive feedback on how I can improve. If a person comments, then they can be more specific and they can be more direct. And they can say, okay, let me tell you all of the little bits and pieces of why your video made a difference. Those are the types of comments I value the most, not only because they tell me what I can do to improve, but also tell me what I should keep doing to make sure that I'm pleasing you guys. But they also start conversations. My love language is quality time, and so to me, it matters more to have a good experience with someone than to give them all the hugs in the world or receive a great gift or to have all of the positive affirmations. To me, a good time, a good conversation, a good video game session, even just sitting next to each other, but like in a non-judgmental form, that to me means more than just trying to appease my feelings, these allergies. I might just have to end the video here because my allergies are starting to get to me. But I think I've explained the gist of what I'm trying to say. Just in case you're the type that zones out and doesn't pay attention to every single word I say, let me just reiterate a couple of short phrases so that you can get the gist of what I'm saying if you're the low memory attention type. ISTJs have a hard time detecting positive emotions. So they have a hard time recognizing when someone is complimenting them or affirming them. Because they're so duty-oriented, they don't necessarily think that maybe they have a positive impact. So if you want them to be proud of their efforts and not take themselves for granted, you have to be direct. You have to tell them straight up what it is that they did that meant so much to you. And you have to produce a tangible result, similar to that guy saying that I saved him some hospital bills because I disinfected the germs off of the machines in the gym. And you especially need to make sure that you don't leave out any details because the ISTJ is going to question them. If you say, oh, that was good, the ISTJ is going to nitpick every single little thing. That's why they make good lawyers, because one little thing is out of line, they're going to pick up on it. They're not intuitives. They're not good at seeing the big picture. They're not good at seeing the forest for the trees. To them, every tree has an individual pattern that they spot. In fact, you might have noticed that I'm constantly looking around during this video and noticing the different lengths of the grass around me, so that probably means it needs to be cut pretty soon. So hopefully that was enough of a synopsis. I hope that you guys can be trendsetters in the world of ISTJs, and if you know someone of my type, or if you feel like I'm too hard on myself, get away mosquito, then maybe try my advice and that'll make my day even more, because then I will be able to say, oh wow, my YouTube channel is more than just a hobby. It's actually getting people closer to Christ. It's actually being a follow-up to Catholic Heart Work Camp. It's fulfilling, get away mosquito, it's actually fulfilling that lack of being able to chaperone that conference recently. That would actually mean more to me than anything, guys, is if you were to say, Paul, you may have missed out on that conference, but like your videos ended up teaching me as you would have taught those teenagers you would have chaperoned. So with that, thank you very much for watching. Please let me know down in the comments what you think about the video. Go in as much depth as possible. Well, what you learned. How does my function stack relate to yours? Are you completely bamboozled by the fact that extroverted feeling just does not come naturally to me and I have to be taught about it through an external system? And also, like, do you think ISTJs are too hard on themselves? Let me know either way. I'm constantly trying to improve this channel and make it like the ultimate experience for you guys, but I'm not an intuitive. I don't know what you guys like. So I really appreciate you guys like giving big suggestions. So thank you very much for watching. Thank you to my patrons, Matthew Rakowski, Spoon Go Splatcat, Scooter Doodles, and maybe Irene. Patreon is particularly weird about her. I don't even know if she's a supporter or not, or maybe she wanted to, but she forgot to fill out the forms. Either way, thank you to all of you, and until the next time, remember to keep the faith, stay epic, and God bless. Bye!